Hi, this is Deborah Lockridge with Heavy Duty Trucking, and I'm here at the McLeod User Conference with none other than Tom McLeod, founder and chief executive at the company. So, Tom, you talked this morning about why this is a good time for your business to do a tune-up. Tell us a little bit about why this is a good time to look into your operations and see what can be improved.
Well, many companies run pretty lean, and when business is up, when freight is really moving, there's not a lot of spare time to consider alternate ways of doing things. There's not a lot of time to get educated. When things slow down a little bit, you've got a little extra time. There's some well-run companies that will offer the specific function, and even in the good times, take a look at what they're doing. But for many companies, this is an ideal opportunity to up their game.
Scraper Systems by Right Height is North America's leading name for automated rooftop snow removal from truck fleets. Safely clear 24 inches of snow and ice in less than 30 seconds. Scraper Systems fleet plows help reduce winter risks, protect your brand, and get your fleet on the road quickly after a snowstorm. Machines are available to ship today. Contact scrapersystems.com for more information.
So, I guess why is the economic freight environment? What's it looking like? That gives us slower time for people to do a checkup.
Well, for one thing, capacity really increased. Right in the middle of the driver shortage, suddenly there's more trucks on the road, and that made freight feel softer really before it had backed off. But freight has backed off just a few percentage points, and that creates an environment where the spot rates have come down, and freight may be a little harder to come by. Companies may have the temptation of being a little less selective, but very important, now they've got some time to get educated on newer truck technologies that are coming down the pike, some time to examine their internal processes, and make some changes to implement some things that they've been meaning to and just have not gotten around to. I mentioned that some people would not tolerate an engine running rough at all. We said, hey, it's time for a tune-up in your business. If an engine's running rough, you lose power, your fuel mileage is not what it should be, so costs are higher. And it's the exact same situation in a business. If the business is allowed to run rough, your costs are higher, and you don't get full utilization. You're not pulling as much as you should be with your company. So we're really encouraging people to tune up the business, optimize it, so that when the chain pulls tight again, they'll be in great position to get more than their share of the market.
And be ready to burst out of the gate running.
There you go.
One of the things that you suggested people do during this time is get educated on new technologies. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there are a number of new truck technologies that are coming down the pike that will affect most operations, either on a competitive or on an internal basis. Electric vehicles, one of those technologies. Hydrogen fuel cells, another potential technology. And autonomous trucking, where we've got right now freight being hauled by autonomous truck in certain high-density lanes. A safety driver is present, but that at some point that will go away. And the companies that participate early really are the ones who have they're in position to take advantage of the benefits of those technologies early. The electric vehicles is an example. The companies that are able to implement that earlier can walk into their shipper, and they've got a better ESG score. They're greener technology,
right.
Lower carbon footprint. Many of the shippers want to take advantage of working with carriers like that. So assessing where your customers are, your shippers, and what's their propensity towards wanting to work with carriers that have implemented those technologies, and then assessing your own ability, your company's ability to absorb that new technology. Maintenance requirements will be different. Obviously, the operation of the vehicle will be a lot different. So getting educated now when you have a chance to is a great use of the current climate.
Time is money, and that's why CatScale built the Weigh My Truck app. Your drivers can complete their entire weigh without ever leaving the cab. They'll see their weights on their mobile device or tablet, and scale tickets can be automatically emailed to you. With a fleet profile, you can save back office time as well. No driver reimbursements. And you'll have access to report data. Find out more at weighmytruck.com.
And I know at McLeod you've been investigating these kinds of technologies, so what it's going to mean for the software to manage everything in the operations. And I understand y'all have met with some autonomous truck companies about what that's going to look like as far as the logistics operations from the software end.
Yeah, we're having conversations and standing by with some developments, since a key part of our application is to manage the operations, understanding the truck's capability, let's say from a electrical charge, how far will
right.
How many miles are left, on this charge. On the autonomous vehicle, there'll be a number of commercial aspects on, paying the potential safety driver or the driver that accompanies a load to the on-ramp or picks it back up at the off-ramp, getting those drivers paid, getting the customer billed properly, tracking the shipment en route. All those things will need to take place on an interface basis in order to allow our customers to participate in these technologies when they roll out. So we're certainly, have things in the works to make sure we're at the forefront there.
Another thing that you said was to spend some time figuring out how to unlock your treasures, sort of from the, operations and management software side. Tell me, what's a couple examples of what fleets might do with that?
Well, from that standpoint, we're referring to sometimes software capabilities that are already in the product and the installation that, let's say, our customer already has. They've already paid for it, but they haven't implemented it. Sometimes that's driver detention module. Detention being a huge cost for many companies when a driver in a truck is held up from delivery or for unloading. And the better run carriers really will often have agreements in place where they get paid for the extra time that might be required. The company that hadn't taken that step is letting their truck sit for free. We've got a module that can help automate those charges, help automate the notification of their shipper, help automate the notification internally to help reduce those wait times. That takes a while to implement. That's not something you throw the switch and it's working by lunchtime. There's setup involved, there's customer communication, but once that happens, it can be an enormously great return on the investment in time, and really very helpful in maintaining better shipper-carrier relations.
I know things were so busy during the recent boom times, and a lot of fleets didn't really have time to kind of look into their data and see are there areas of their company that are not as efficient perhaps as they could be? Are there lanes perhaps where they're not making as much money as they thought they would? What are some ways fleets are going to be able to use data to sort of help them with this checkup, this tune-up of getting ready for the next boom time?
Well, there's no shortcut for spending enough time and getting familiar with the information. There's not an instant report that can tell you what to do and allows you to take action. Now, the whole point of looking at the data is coming to the point of action.
Right.
So there's got to be somebody that's going to do something different based on the data that they see, and they need to know what they're looking for, within the data, and that can vary from one operation to the next. Many of our reports, we produce some of the commonly requested KPIs right out of the gate. With our IQ product, where we have a preset data warehouse, that gives you, a lot of reports right out of the gate. And many of those will fit and be useful, but for a lot of operations, it needs to get more specific. There's just so many different sub-niche markets within transportation that the operating characteristics can vary pretty widely. But there's no substitute for spending the time and getting to know the numbers and not making assumptions. Once you really look at the numbers, you will almost always be surprised at what's in there, and that's golden. Once you see what's happening and what's driving the business, and then you make the changes to the operation to take advantage of that information, it makes an enormous difference.
All right, Tom. Well, I think that's about all the time we've got today. It's always good to talk to you, and appreciate your insights into how fleets can kind of take this time and be ready for the next upturn.
Great. Deborah, thank you.
Thank you.